The creator of the sexiest and at the same time most recognized magazine worldwide is one of the most emblematic figures of the 20th century. No matter how old you are, and especially if you're a man, I'm sure you've seen this iconic symbol more than once, the Playboy icon, the bunny. But what was speculated in rumors and legends ended up being a reality once the secrets of the Playboy mansion came to light after the death of Hugh Hefner. From abuses to international scale parties with the celebrities of the moment. In today's video, I'm going to tell you a bit about the life of the tycoon and the scandals of his brand, the Playboy brand. Hefner's adolescence was just one of the many. He was born into an Orthodox Methodist family, and intimacy issues were considered indecent and dark topics that were not even allowed to be discussed. He confessed the following in an interview shared with the newspaper El Mundo. "We were forbidden alcohol. Talking about sex was taboo, as was showing feelings and any kind of body contact. My mother didn't kiss me so as not to transmit bacteria to me. I lost my virginity at the age of 22. I am still a virgin, and I don't say anything." The most curious thing is that despite his restricted childhood, he ended up making history with his daring and unconventional sexual exploits. He lived in a mansion surrounded by women who saw him as a sex symbol, and who could well have been his granddaughters. For a long time, he became a frequent customer of the blue pills to enhance, to keep it hard. And he could never get rid of these even at an adult age. All this life he led was made possible thanks to Playboy. The magazine that would break with the paradigms of a developing North America was launched in the year 53, and in just a short time it became an empire that encompassed various strata, from real estate to nightclubs, clothing and jewelry. According to him, Playboy became the answer to the closed and strict education that his parents gave him. And the magazine would be the product of his unfulfilled dreams, and the way to escape from the reality to which he had been subjected. Envied by many, but admired by many more. The truth is that Hugh Hefner lived long enough to be an icon in the industry. Born on April 9th of the year 26 in the same city where he was raised. He was a victim of the vicissitudes that the Great Depression brought with it from his early years. With aspirations to become a cartoonist or professional illustrator, he entered the University of Illinois, where on his father's advice he would study journalism. During that time, he worked on the student magazine Shaft, a series of humorous publications where sexual topics were discussed, and in which one could see a semblance of what would later become Playboy. In this magazine, one could find photos of beautiful models on the covers, and cheeky descriptions written by Hefner himself. Thanks to some reports from the New York Times, it is known that Hugh Hefner was part of the American Army for a few years before finally settling into a job at a magazine dedicated to a child audience. At the same time, what he described as the love of his life crossed his path and he married Mildred Williams. Just a few months later, they started a family and had 2 children. On the surface, they seemed to be a young family with a lot of potential and a future ahead. But in reality, in his mind, he was living a lie. He was so lost at that point in his life. He didn't believe he was capable of anything more than repeating everything. He thought marriage would fulfill his romantic dreams, but everything was the opposite. He felt they were over. So he tried to follow his instinct, and with the magazine again, Hefner had a clear goal: to leave behind the conservative values that had prevailed in the country since the economic crisis of '29. He was looking for a life full of party joys and the purest hedonism. But above all, he wanted to detach sex from morality and build a different perspective of what could be done in bed. At first, the magazine was named Stack Party. However, it was changed because there was already a publication with that name. So in '53, Playboy was officially launched, and the first star to appear on the cover was the woman of the moment, Marilyn Monroe. That was enough for the magazine to immediately become a classic, and everyone wanted to buy one. It was a total success, and in a short time they had already sold more than 50,000 copies, and everyone was talking about it. With that, Hugh Hefner would soon become an eccentric millionaire, whose first goal was to buy a residence where he not only had the craziest parties of the time, but also lived with a dozen women. This new palace, christened the Playboy Mansion, was actually a castle built at the end of the 19th century, and from 1959 to 1974 was located in Chicago. Although he later moved to Los Angeles, California to another mansion he bought in the early 70s, where he would live until his death. Located specifically in Beverly Hills, Hefner's house became a center for parties, excesses, and orgies for entire decades in which celebrities, actresses, politicians, and artists participated. Currently valued at about $200 million, the luxurious property is around 1,300 square meters and houses a zoo, a game house, a pool, and even a private forest. By the early 2000s and over 70 years old, Hugh dressed in his iconic satin robes and appeared with a sailor's hat, living the life of a tycoon, an eccentric man full of pleasures and excesses. And although it was not known at the time, the women who lived with him strictly adhered to rigorous rules and were even victims of abuse by Hefner. According to the testimony of former participant Holly Madison, a real hell was lived inside. Some parts of the house were dirty and full of mold, and the pillows in the various rooms were corroded. Teenagers from 16 years old were trafficked, abused, beaten, and even prepared to be sold in some of the mini mansions that belonged to the businessmen's friends. Certain witnesses commented that the applicants who failed to pass the auditions to be selected and enter the main Playboy house were housed in a network of Beverly Hills homes, where they were kept under illusions and false promises of modeling contracts and roles in movies. And the worst part was that they were traded like cattle for any rich and powerful man willing to pay. Jennifer Saganor was one of the few women who grew up in the glamorous mansion in the 90s. As the daughter of Dr. Mark Saganor and a close friend of Hefner, she claimed that she unfortunately knew the secret and dark side of the Playboy company from a very early age. One of Jennifer's most controversial descriptions was to assure that on more than one occasion, she saw how young women were drugged without their consent and then forced to engage in intimacy with several men. All the women who wanted to be part of the luxurious Playboy lineup had to go through certain tests and sometimes sell themselves directly in exchange for favors or money. Often the bunnies were blackmailed by men who threatened to blacklist them from actresses and models if they did not agree to sleep with them. These men were very rich and were connected with the entertainment industry, politics, and sports. They organized massive parties under the guise of fake modeling agencies. This is what Jennifer recounted in an interview. There were regular abuses, and it is even said that on one occasion, one of the models was forced to be intimate with an animal just to entertain one of the clients who paid a large amount of money. All these testimonies provided by this same woman are portrayed in the book Playground, A Lost Childhood Inside the Playboy Mansion. And if you're interested in reading it and have a stomach to endure the atrocities, which you surely do, that's why you're on this channel. I recommend it. In another of the disturbing chapters of the book, it details that she witnessed an overdose of a young Swedish woman resident of one of the mini mansions who had been rejected from the main mansion. Paulina Svensson suffered an overdose in a bathroom after ingesting large amounts of harmful substances that she exchanged for a favor of pleasure. What was known was that the owner had his security guards take the girl's body wrapped in a blanket and throw it into a room without calling the police or an ambulance. Obviously, the woman was no longer breathing, and all of this had been due to the negligence of all these people. This and more is said about the dark secrets that the Playboy Mansion and its associates kept during Hefner's lifetime. He passed away on September 27, 2017 at the age of 91 from natural causes. More and more people were able to tell about the abuses and excesses that were lived in that house for so long, and they are very likely to continue to come out. Currently, this man's legacy stands almost 5 years after his death, implying two things: that sometimes dreams do come true, and that there are people who simply cannot control their wildest instincts once they have power and money. But if you like this video, remember that you can follow me on all my social networks. If you are on YouTube, you can check out the videos on Facebook and vice versa. I upload videos every day, but they don't go hand in hand. You can also find the audios on Spotify and the merch on pepimysterio.com. See you tomorrow. Thank you.